The air inside the interview hall felt sacred. Not quiet, sacred. Like even silence had wrapped itself in formality. 3 chairs stood before the long polished table where the panel sat. 2 were filled by hopeful applicants, stiff with anxiety, hands resting on knees. The 3rd chair, seat number 2, remained empty. A white paper tag with the number 2 hung from the backrest, fluttering slightly under the humming air conditioning. It fluttered like it had a heart of its own. Everyone was waiting for Elliana Benson. Her name had echoed in the hallways for days. The most qualified. The woman with experience, grace, and grit. She had once spoken at a tech conference, even though she wasn't from any big firm. A single mother who had pulled herself up from the dust with nothing but a folder of certificates and sheer audacity. But now she was late. The chairman checked his watch. Again, still no sign of her. One of the panelists cleared his throat. Another sighed softly, already preparing to move on. The second applicant fidgeted, staring at the vacant chair like it had committed a crime. Then, finally, the door creaked. All heads turned. It wasn't Elliana. It was a girl. A girl in a torn dress. Barefoot, hair uncombed, wild like she had fought the wind. Her cheeks were wet, her eyes red and puffy. She looked like she hadn't slept, like she had been running for hours. I'm sorry, she said, stepping forward. Her voice trembled. My mother is dead. A collective gasp swept through the hall like a gust of disbelief. Someone in the back row covered her mouth. What? One of the interviewers leaned forward. What do you mean? Who is your mother? The girl clutched a brown envelope to her chest, as if it were a life jacket keeping her above water. Her name is Elliana Benson, she whispered. Seat number 2, that was her seat. She raised a paper. Her fingers shook so badly, it nearly tore. This is her death certificate. She was knocked down by a car. Last night. The paper fluttered as she held it up, fragile as her voice. The room didn't breathe. In the back, a tall man in a navy suit stood slowly. Not a panelist. Not an interviewer. He didn't even wear a name tag. But everyone knew him. Kingsley Anderson, billionaire founder of King's Tech. Owner of the company, the building, maybe even the dreams in the applicants' heads. His face, usually unreadable, softened. His eyes glistened. He looked at the girl, then at the empty chair, then at the envelope in her hand like it was a flag of surrender. What's your name? He asked, stepping forward. The girl swallowed. Elliana, sir. Elliana Adam. The paper tag on seat number 2 fluttered again. It had waited long enough. That morning, the sun rose quietly over Lagos. Elliana walked behind the mourners as they left the cemetery. Dust clung to her bare feet. Her hands clutched a faded scarf, her mother's, stained with old perfume and new grief. The grave was still fresh, red earth piled high like a wound the world refused to stitch. We will not be poor forever, Elliana had said the day before, rinsing plates with a smile that made even hard days softer. If King's Tech gives me the job, you'll go to university. You'll become a doctor. You'll help people. You'll help me. They had spent the afternoon carrying bricks at a nearby construction site. It wasn't work meant for women, but they did it anyway. Elliana had insisted on buying a second-hand office dress before the interview. She didn't have much left after rent, but she was determined. She left smiling. She never came back. A car. A scream. The sound of shattering bones under a streetlight. Elliana was the one who held her mother's hand until the ambulance came too late. Now, she carried the only things Elliana left behind. A brown envelope filled with documents, certificates, reference letters, and dreams, and a newly issued death certificate. She hadn't eaten, hadn't slept, but her mother's words echoed in her ears louder than hunger. Seat number 2 must not remain empty. So she walked. When her legs trembled, she ran. The guards at the King's Tech gate frowned when they saw her. Dusty, disheveled, disrespectful, by appearance alone. I need to go in, she said, her voice barely holding together. It's for my mother, Elliana Benson. One of them hesitated, but looked into her eyes and stepped aside. Grief had its own kind of authority. Inside the hall, the second applicant had just finished. The chairman called the next name. Elliana Benson. Silence. He frowned and called again. Elliana Benson? Then came the creak of the door, and Elliana stepped in. What followed was a story none of them would forget. Come, Kingsley said now, gently pulling out the empty chair. Sit here. Elliana didn't move. I came to beg, she said, her eyes sweeping the room. My father died when I was little. My mother raised me with nothing but love and hard work. We carried bricks yesterday because she couldn't afford a dress. She went out to buy one anyway. Her voice broke. She didn't look. The car. She clenched the envelope tighter. She was buried this morning. Silence. I want to be a doctor. I want to help people like she wanted. If you can't give her the job, give me anything. I'll clean. I'll fetch water. Just let me save. Let me study. Tears slipped down her cheeks. The chairman's pen dropped and rolled across the table. Kingsley stepped forward. His voice was no longer soft. It was strong. Elliana, from today you are my daughter. Gasps filled the room. One of the applicants covered his mouth. Another looked away. The woman with the tissue broke down completely. You will not clean floors, Kingsley said. You will study medicine. King's Tech will sponsor you. Your mother is part of this company now. We will honor her. The envelope slipped from Elliana's hands. She knelt. Thank you, sir. Thank you. She whispered, tears wetting the marble floor. Kingsley didn't care about the dust on her dress. He bent and lifted her like she weighed nothing at all. You're safe now, he said. Then he turned. Sam. Yes, sir. The tall driver stepped forward. Take her to the salon. Let them wash her hair. Trim it. Make her feel new. Then to the boutique. Buy her what she needs. Not one dress. Enough to begin again. Yes, sir. Elliana looked once more at seat number 2. Thank you, she whispered, for waiting. The paper tag no longer fluttered. It lay still. But somewhere else, across the city, in a house filled with soft lights and sharp silences, Evelyn Anderson watched from a distance. She stood at the large window of her home, staring through glass that distorted her reflection. The driver's car disappeared down the road. Her smile sharpened. So, this is the girl, she said quietly. Her fingers tapped the edge of the window. A storm was coming, and she was already planning how to survive it. By the time the sun set, the salon lights washed over Elliana like a quiet baptism. Warm water streamed through her tangled hair. A stylist with gentle hands and a face like someone who'd seen sorrow too, whispered softly as she worked. Sometimes, she said, combing slowly, the world breaks us to rebuild us. Elliana didn't speak. She just nodded, tears slipping down her cheeks, unnoticed in the steam. At the boutique, everything felt too shiny, too soft. Staff buzzed around her, measuring, folding, laughing in short bursts like champagne fizz. She was dressed in a simple gold gown by the end of it, soft against her skin, glowing under the shop's lights. Sam, the driver, smiled. Madam won't recognize you. Sir will be happy. But Eliana's eyes lingered on the mirror, not in vanity, but in disbelief. Who was this girl? Back at King's Tech, the executive floor shimmered under brighter lights. The elevator doors opened with a whisper. Staff turned, surprised. Some smiled. Others froze. They weren't expecting sunlight after a storm. Elliana stepped out, still clutching the brown envelope, though it now felt lighter, less like armor, more like memory. When she re-entered the hall, Kingsley stood with the panel and a few senior managers. His breath caught when he saw her. She looked like Juliana, not in features, but in spirit. Strong, calm, determined. She walked straight to him, placed the envelope on the table, and sank to her knees. Thank you, Daddy, she said. The word trembled on her lips, but it landed right in his heart. I will not fail you. Kingsley lifted her to her feet. You already honored us, he said. Your mother would be proud. He turned to the room. Ladies and gentlemen, meet Elliana Anderson, my daughter. The room erupted in applause. A few people wept again. Someone whispered, what a day. But not everyone smiled. The house glowed warm as they pulled up the driveway. Inside, the air smelled of stew, jasmine, and something heavier. Anticipation, perhaps. A tall woman descended the staircase. Evelyn. Her steps were slow, precise. Her eyes scanned the girl before her, pausing at the gold gown, the soft hair, the new shoes. Her smile was practiced, perfectly polite, but cold beneath the polish. Welcome, she said. I'm Evelyn, Kingsley's wife. Her voice was smooth, controlled. This is Elliana, Kingsley said, placing a hand on the girl's shoulder. Evelyn's lips twitched. So, this is the daughter you brought home today. A flicker of emotion passed behind her eyes, then gone. You must be tired, she said. Sam, show her to the guest room. Thank you, Ma. Elliana said with a respectful bow. She followed Sam upstairs, her gold dress trailing behind her like an uncertain promise. Once they were out of sight, Evelyn stood still in the living room. Her hands didn't move, but her jaw clenched. She turned to the window. The streetlights cast her reflection in the glass, pristine, composed, unreadable. Then her phone buzzed. She answered without checking the name. "She's here," she said in a low voice. The person on the line responded quickly, too low to hear. Evelyn's eyes narrowed. She stared toward the stairs where the girl had vanished. "I need advice," she said. A soft laugh crackled back. She ended the call, smoothed her dress, pasted the smile back on her face, just as footsteps sounded on the staircase. Elliana had come down to say goodnight. Evelyn turned, her smile already in place. "Sleep well, dear," she said sweetly. But when her phone lit up again with a message that made her lips curve into a new shape, it was not sweetness that filled her. It was a plan. The next morning, sunlight filtered through glass walls. Everything was too clean, too quiet. A house like a hotel. Elliana woke in sheets softer than anything she had ever known. For a moment, she thought it was a dream. Then she saw the note. "Breakfast is downstairs. Evelyn." Elegant handwriting. Cold message. She folded her mother's scarf and pressed it gently to her chest before getting up. The dining room stretched wide like a ballroom. Chandeliers sparkled. Marble floors gleamed. Kingsley sat at the far end, newspaper in hand, coffee steaming. His jacket lay on the chair beside him. Evelyn sat next to him, back straight, fork in hand, face unreadable. Elliana entered softly. "Good morning, Daddy," she said. Kingsley looked up, his smile warm. "Good morning, my dear. Come sit." Evelyn's eyes slid to the girl's face. "You must have slept well." "Yes, Ma. Thank you." The food was rich. Elliana ate quietly, grateful but overwhelmed. Kingsley watched her with pride. "She reminds me so much of Juliana," he said suddenly. "The strength, the courage." Evelyn's fork froze midair. "Juliana?" she asked lightly. "Yes," he said. "Her late mother. She must have been an incredible woman." Evelyn nodded, chewing slowly. But her mind was somewhere else. Gratitude was not what she saw when she looked at Elliana. She saw something more dangerous. Replacement. That afternoon, Kingsley called Elliana to his office at King's Tech. She wore a simple blue dress. Sam had helped her pick it out. Kingsley was finishing a video call when she entered. His voice was firm, confident, the voice of a man who controlled empires. But when he saw her, he softened. "Come in, my daughter," he said. Elliana stepped forward. "You called for me, sir?" Kingsley laughed. "It's Dad, remember?" She blushed. "Yes, Daddy." He handed her a folder. "These are your scholarship documents. You'll be applying to the University of Nigeria, Nsukka. Medicine, just like your mother dreamed." Elliana froze. "To study medicine?" He nodded. Tears gathered in her eyes. "Thank you, Daddy. I'll never forget this. You already made me proud." From the house window, Evelyn watched them return, Kingsley and the girl, laughing at something. He touched her shoulder as they walked up the steps. That image burned into Evelyn's mind. Her heart clenched. She turned to her phone. "Monica," she said sharply when the call connected. "It's getting worse." He calls her daughter, but it's more than that. He looks at her like he sees something I can't compete with. "Fear," Monica said calmly, "is the beginning of your end. He's changing, Evelyn. You have to act before he forgets you entirely." "What do I do?" "Start by watching her closely. Trust no one. Even angels come with secrets." Evelyn ended the call and stared at her reflection again. Her lipstick was perfect, but her eyes? They were cold as stone. Weeks passed. Elliana began online classes. She helped around the office when she wasn't supposed to. Carried files. Arranged flowers. Smiled at everyone. Even the cleaners adored her. "God bless you, my daughter," one said. "You're not like the others." "I'm not rich," she replied with a shy smile. "Just lucky someone believed in me." From the hallway, Evelyn heard every word. That night at dinner, Kingsley beamed. The board approved the scholarship. Elliana leaves for school in 2 weeks. Evelyn froze mid-bite. 2 weeks. "Yes. Isn't that wonderful?" "Very," she replied flatly. Elliana looked at her. "I'll make you proud too, Ma. I promise." Evelyn smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. Kingsley reached for his wife's hand. "You'll see. This girl will change the world." That night, Evelyn didn't sleep. She paced her room like a caged thing. Every sound from Eliana's room, her laughter, her calls, her new joy, felt like daggers. Then at midnight, she opened a drawer, took out a small silver bottle. It glinted like gilt. A few drops, Monica had said. Enough to end a dream. Evelyn's hand trembled. "I'm not a killer," she whispered. But then she thought of Kingsley's laughter, the touch on Eliana's shoulder. A tear rolled down her cheek. "If I lose him, I lose everything." And just like that, the bottle stayed in her hand, waiting. The house was quiet that morning. Quiet in a way that felt wrong, like the air was holding a secret. It was Eliana's last day before traveling to Nsukka to begin university. A day that should have been filled with light. Evelyn stood outside her door, a tray in her hands. Jollof rice, fried chicken, a chilled bottle of water. The smell was warm, homey, familiar. She knocked gently. "Come in, Ma," Eliana called cheerfully. Evelyn stepped inside with a soft smile. Her eyes scanned the suitcase half-packed on the bed, the neatly folded clothes, the brown envelope still close to the girl's heart. "I made this myself," Evelyn said, setting the tray on the bedside table. Eliana's eyes widened. "Really? Thank you, Ma. You didn't have to." Evelyn smiled again. "Hush. Eat. You've been running around all week. You need your strength." Eliana hugged her briefly before sitting down. Evelyn stood by the door for a moment, hands twisting behind her back. Her mouth opened, as if she wanted to say something, then closed again. She turned and walked away. The door clicked shut. 5 minutes later, the pain began. It started in her stomach. A twist, a sharp heat. Then came the breathlessness. Eliana clutched her chest, gasping. The room blurred around her. The bed spun. Her hands trembled. She tried to scream, but no sound came. Her throat was dry. Her mouth foamed. She staggered to the door. "Help," she whispered. "Help." Her knees buckled. Her body hit the cold marble floor with a soft, broken sound. Outside, footsteps echoed, but they didn't come closer. Evelyn stood by the wall, listening. She heard the whisper. She smiled and walked the other way. Kingsley's car pulled into the driveway earlier than planned. He had cut his meeting short. Something had pulled at his heart, a need to see Eliana's smile, to hear her voice before she left. "Sam, park fast," he said. He stepped into the house. He heard it. Faint. Weak. "Help. Daddy." His heart stopped. He ran. Up the stairs. Past the portraits. Past Evelyn, who stood frozen at the corner. "Eliana." He kicked open the door. She was on the floor, eyes wide, limbs shaking. "Daddy," she gasped. "My stomach, it burns." He scooped her into his arms. "Sam," he shouted. "Start the car now." Evelyn stood by the wall, pale as ash. "What happened?" she asked softly. Kingsley didn't even look at her. He ran, and the girl who had once begged for a chance now begged for breath. The hospital lights were too bright, too white. Machines beeped. Nurses moved quickly. Doctors shouted over one another. The smell of disinfectant and blood hung in the air. Kingsley paced outside the emergency room, eyes red, hands shaking. A nurse stepped out. "Sir, please. Try to stay calm. She's fighting." "What happened to her?" he asked, his voice hoarse. "She was fine this morning." The nurse didn't answer. Inside the room, Eliana lay still. Tubes ran from her arms and nose. Her lips were pale, her breathing shallow. Kingsley pressed his hands together, praying for the first time in years. "Please, God," he whispered. "Don't take her too." The sound of hurried heels snapped him back. Evelyn arrived, wrapped in a shawl, face pale, makeup smudged. "Kingsley," she cried. "What happened? Is she?" Kingsley turned, eyes bloodshot. "You tell me," he said. "You were home with her." Evelyn gasped. "She was fine when I saw her. Maybe she ate something from outside. She didn't go outside today." A long silence stretched between them. A nurse came back out. "She's stable for now, but we need to operate. The poison is spreading." Kingsley stood. "Do whatever it takes. Just save her." The nurse nodded and vanished. Evelyn sat down slowly, wiping invisible tears. But her hands were shaking. Not from sorrow, from fear. 3 hours passed. Kingsley didn't sit. He stood by the window, fists clenched, whispering prayers. At 9:17 p.m., the doctor came out. Kingsley rushed forward. "Doctor?" The man looked exhausted. "She's alive," he said. Kingsley exhaled, collapsing into a nearby chair. "But the poison," the doctor continued. "It damaged her uterus. She won't be able to have children." The words hit Kingsley like a blow. "No," he whispered. "No." The doctor placed a hand on his shoulder. "She'll survive. That's what matters." The moment the doctor left, Kingsley turned to Evelyn. "She can't have children," he said. Evelyn's face paled further. It must have been something she ate. "I want the security footage," Kingsley said coldly. "Every camera. Every corner. From Tuesday." Evelyn's mouth opened, but no sound came out. Kingsley didn't leave the hospital that night. He sat beside Elliana's bed, watched her chest rise and fall, held her hand, whispered, "You're my daughter. You're strong. Don't leave me." The next afternoon, Kingsley returned home briefly. His security chief, Duke, had reviewed the footage. Kingsley watched in silence as the video played. Evelyn, entering the kitchen, checking the hallway, taking a small silver bottle from her purse, pouring a few drops into the food, carrying the tray upstairs. When the video ended, the room was silent. Kingsley didn't speak for a full minute. Then, quietly, "She poisoned her. Should I call the police?" Duke asked. Kingsley nodded. "Yes. Right now." Evelyn returned from church just as two police vans pulled into the compound. She stepped out of her car, confused. "Mrs. Anderson?" an officer asked. "Yes. You're under arrest for attempted murder." She laughed. "Nervous?" "What?" "No. There must be a mistake." "Tell that to the judge," the officer replied. He handcuffed her wrists. "Kingsley," she screamed. "Tell them I didn't do anything." Kingsley stepped out from the doorway. He said nothing. "Please," she sobbed. "I was afraid. I thought she was taking you from me." Kingsley's eyes were cold, unforgiving. "She trusted you. She called you mommy." Evelyn broke down as they dragged her away. "I did it for love," she cried. But Kingsley turned his back. "Love doesn't kill," he said. The car door slammed shut. 3 days later, Elliana opened her eyes. She saw Kingsley, head in his hands. "Daddy," she whispered. He shot up. "Elliana, my child." She smiled weakly. "Where's mommy?" Kingsley froze. "She's gone, my dear," he said gently. "We'll talk later. Just rest." That night, he sat by the window, watching rain paint streaks on the glass. He whispered into the dark, "Juliana, I failed, but I swear, I'll make it right." His phone buzzed. Suspect Evelyn Anderson charged with attempted murder. Court hearing scheduled for Monday. Kingsley looked at Elliana, sleeping peacefully. He gripped her hand tightly. "You survived death," he whispered. "Now you must survive the truth." Outside, thunder rolled across the sky. And somewhere in the distance, fate turned another page. The sun over Lagos rose weakly that morning, as if it, too, was unsure how to face the day. The court compound overflowed with whispers, cameras, and curious eyes. Reporters shoved microphones at anyone who looked important. Spectators craned their necks, desperate to catch a glimpse of the woman behind the scandal that rocked King's Tech. Evelyn Anderson, once the elegant wife of a billionaire, now wore a faded prison uniform. Her wrists were cuffed, her face gaunt. But her eyes, those sharp, clever eyes, still searched the crowd like they could find an escape route. She didn't find one. Across the aisle sat Kingsley Anderson, expression hollow, suit immaculate. And beside him, wearing a simple white gown and headscarf, was Elliana. Her hands trembled slightly in her lap. 3 weeks had passed since the poisoning. Her body was healing. But her heart? It was still learning how to beat again. The judge entered. An elderly man with tired eyes and a voice like still water. "Court is now in session." Everyone stood, then sat. The prosecutor rose, slow and deliberate. "Your lordship," he began. "This is a case of attempted murder. The poisoning of one Miss Elliana Adam, an orphan under the guardianship of Mr. Kingsley Anderson, by the defendant, Mrs. Evelyn Anderson." Gasps fluttered across the courtroom. Evelyn sat still. The prosecutor continued. "The evidence is clear. Surveillance footage from the Anderson residence shows the defendant introducing a substance into a meal served to the victim. The same day, that victim was rushed to the hospital, suffering from acute poisoning." He lifted a still frame from the footage. Evelyn, caught mid-motion, bottle in hand, her face half-lit by kitchen light. More murmurs. Evelyn's lawyer jumped to his feet. "Objection, my lord. That image proves nothing but presence, not intent. My client was emotional, manipulated, not in her right mind." "Overruled," the judge said calmly. The prosecutor nodded. "I now call Miss Elliana Adam to the witness box." Every step Elliana took felt like she was walking back into her mother's grave. She stood, hands clenched at her sides. "State your name for the court," the clerk said. "Elliana Adam," she replied softly. "Miss Adam," the prosecutor asked. "In your own words, tell us what happened that day." Elliana took a breath. It caught in her throat. "It was the day before I was to travel to university," she began. "Mommy Evelyn brought food to my room. Jollof rice. Chicken," she said. "She made it herself." She glanced at Evelyn. The woman looked down, tears pooling at her lashes. "I ate a few spoons," Elliana continued, her voice cracking. "Then my stomach, it started to twist. I couldn't breathe. I tried to scream. I thought I was dying." The room went silent. The prosecutor leaned forward gently. "And what did the doctors say after they saved you?" Eliana's voice was barely a whisper. "They said the food was poisoned." Her lip trembled. "And they said, I can never have a child again." A woman in the gallery broke down, sobbing. Kingsley lowered his head. The judge sat still, eyes fixed on Evelyn. The prosecutor turned toward the defense. "No further questions." Evelyn's lawyer stood slowly. "Your Honor, the defendant would like to address the court." The judge nodded. "Proceed." Evelyn stood. Her voice was dry. "Low. I am guilty of being jealous," she began, "but not of being evil." Her eyes met Eliana's. "You came into my home, and everything changed," she said. "My husband smiled again, but not at me. I thought I was being replaced." She swallowed hard. "I didn't mean to kill you. I wanted you gone. I wanted my husband back." Her voice broke. "I have lost everything. My name, my dignity, my family. Please forgive me." She dropped to her knees. And for a long moment, the courtroom held its breath. Some people looked away. Others wept. But Elliana only watched her. Not with hate, but with something else. The judge raised his gavel. Silence in the court. He looked long at Evelyn. "Mrs. Anderson," he said slowly, "jealousy is not a crime. But attempted murder is. You poisoned a girl who called you mother." He paused. "For that, you will serve 20 years in prison." The gavel struck wood. Case closed. Evelyn screamed as officers pulled her up. "Kingsley, tell them I didn't mean." He stood slowly. "I loved you," he said. "But love doesn't destroy what it fears." The courtroom doors closed behind her. Outside, cameras flashed. Reporters shouted, "Mr. Anderson, is it true she poisoned your adopted daughter?" "Miss Elliana, how do you feel?" Kingsley shielded her as they left. She didn't speak. Not to them. Not yet. Weeks passed. The news called it the poison promise. The internet called Elliana the miracle girl. But inside, she was still just a girl who missed her mother. Still healing. Still wondering why the people she tried to love had almost destroyed her. She spent her days studying, reading, preparing to leave for school again. Some nights she stood in the garden and whispered to the sky, "Mommy, did I do the right thing?" The wind never answered, but the stars always stayed. One afternoon, she found Kingsley sitting outside, staring into the horizon. "You haven't eaten," she said gently. "I'm not hungry," he replied. "You're thinking about her?" He nodded. Evelyn wasn't always like this. She used to be kind, gentle, but fear, it poisons people long before they touch a bottle. Elliana looked down. "Do you hate her?" "No," he said. "I pity her. But I also learned something." He looked at Elliana with eyes that had cried more than they should. Even the people we love most can become strangers when their hearts grow cold. That night, Elliana dreamed of Juliana again, standing under a tree, smiling, arms open. "Forgive, my child," she whispered. "That's how you stay free." She woke with tears on her pillow, and a strange kind of peace in her chest. A month later, Elliana finally resumed school. The University of Nigeria buzzed with life. Music, laughter, ambition in every hallway. But Elliana walked with a quiet fire. She wasn't there for fun. She was there for a promise. She studied harder than anyone. She volunteered at the hospital, cleaned wards, held hands. "If I can save even one life," she told herself, "maybe I'll heal one more piece of my own." And though she smiled, she never forgot the scar, the one no doctor could see. 5 years passed. Then one morning, as Dr. Elliana Anderson walked into Lagos University Teaching Hospital, white coat, calm eyes, reputation spotless, a call came through. She picked it up. "This is the prison warden," the voice said. "Mrs. Evelyn Anderson attempted suicide last night. She's in critical condition." Elliana froze. They're transferring her to your hospital. A long silence. She asked for you by name. Elliana stood still. The phone trembled in her hand. Then, quietly, she said, "Bring her." Outside, rain began to fall, washing the streets, and opening the final chapter. The rain poured over Lagos like it meant something. Not just weather, not just noise. It was the kind of rain that washed away guilt, softened old pain, and dared the world to start again. Inside Lagos University Teaching Hospital, the emergency ward buzzed with urgency. Footsteps echoed down white corridors. Monitors beeped. Nurses moved like lightning. In the middle of it all stood Dr. Elliana Anderson, 23 now, steady, composed, fierce in her white coat. No one there would have guessed this was the same girl who once knelt in an interview room, begging for her mother's dream to be remembered. But destiny, it seemed, had a thing for circles. A nurse rushed up, breathless. "Doctor, the prison ambulance just arrived. Female, late 40s. Suspected cyanide overdose." Eliana's heart skipped. "Name?" she asked, already knowing. The nurse checked the clipboard. "Evelyn Anderson." The world stilled. Elliana gripped the edge of the counter, eyes darkening, breath catching. The nurse hesitated. "Doctor, do you want me to assign someone else?" Elliana blinked hard. "No," she whispered. "Prep the operating room." The doors burst open. Evelyn was barely recognizable, pale, sweating, lips blue at the edges. Her prison uniform was torn, chest heaving, wrists strapped lightly. Foam rimmed her mouth. A nurse shouted, "Overdose on cyanide. Pulses dropping. BP unstable. Move. Get her on the table." Elliana snapped. She pulled on gloves, her fingers shaking only once. "Start oxygen. Saline. Antidote kit now?" The team obeyed, startled by the urgency in her voice. Elliana leaned over Evelyn's fading form. "You're not dying today," she whispered. And she meant it. Not because Evelyn deserved it, but because she did. Hours passed. The storm outside faded to silence. Inside, Evelyn's heart beat steadily once more. She was alive, bruised, broken, but breathing. When Evelyn opened her eyes, the lights above blinded her. Everything was white, soft, too clean to be familiar. She tried to move, but her wrists were lightly strapped, standard procedure after a suicide attempt. Then came footsteps. Soft, familiar. She turned her head and saw Elliana standing there, still in scrubs, eyes unreadable. "Elliana," her voice cracked. "You're safe," Elliana said. Evelyn looked away. "Why?" she whispered. "Why did you save me? After what I did?" Elliana stepped closer. "Because I'm a doctor," she said gently. "And because I remember what my mother taught me." She placed a cool cloth on Evelyn's forehead. "Forgiveness heals faster than revenge." Tears slid down Evelyn's cheeks. "I ruined your life," she sobbed. "You can't have children because of me." Eliana's voice cracked too, but she stayed steady. "You didn't destroy my life. You gave me a story, a reason to become who I am." She smiled faintly. "And now, I get to save lives, even yours." Evelyn covered her face with her hands. "I don't deserve this." "Then live long enough," Eliana said quietly, "to become someone who does." The door opened again. Kingsley stood in the doorway, his hair grayer, his face tired, but his presence still thunder. Evelyn turned away in shame. "Kingsley," she said, "I don't expect forgiveness. I poisoned everything." Kingsley stepped closer, his eyes never leaving her. "I failed you too," he said. "I saw your fear, but I didn't help you through it. I let love slip into silence." Evelyn's lip trembled. "I'm not here to punish you," he said. "I'm here because Elliana asked me to be." Evelyn looked at her, really looked, and broke again. "After everything I did, you still want him to forgive me?" Elliana nodded. "Because if I carry hate, I'll never be free." That one word, "mommy," slipped out again unplanned. It shattered what was left of Evelyn's walls. "I don't deserve that name," she sobbed. "But you're still human," Elliana said, wiping her tears. "And humans can change." Later that week, Kingsley stood before a judge and withdrew the remaining charges. Evelyn was released on medical grounds, under strict supervision. She moved back into the mansion, not as a wife, not as a villain, but as someone rebuilding. Slowly, quietly, with shame and grace. Elliana returned to the hospital. The world called her the miracle doctor, the girl who forgave her poisoner, But to her, she was just a daughter trying to keep a promise. One afternoon, Kingsley handed her an envelope. "It came today," he said. It was from the University of Geneva. Elliana tore it open, hands trembling. When she saw the words, she gasped. "They want me," she whispered. "A research fellowship. Advanced medicine." Kingsley cried. "You've made your mother proud." Evelyn, sitting nearby in her wheelchair, smiled faintly. "And me too," she said softly. "You showed me what real love looks like." A year later, the house was filled with music, laughter, and sunlight. Children in white shirts ran across the lawn. The garden bloomed. It was the launch of the Juliana Hope Initiative, a foundation to sponsor orphans who wanted to study medicine. Elliana stood at the center of it all, radiant in a soft green dress. Evelyn sat beneath the mango tree, watching her. Her eyes no longer cold, just grateful. "You see, Mommy?" Elliana said, sitting beside her. "Love finds its way home." Evelyn touched her hand. "You were the child I didn't deserve," she whispered. "And God gave you to me anyway." But still, some nights were quiet and heavy. Late one evening, after another long shift, Elliana stood at the hospital window. She looked out at the city and whispered, "Some miracles take longer." She meant children. She meant hope. She meant healing that hadn't fully arrived. She didn't know that miracle was already coming. One humid afternoon, a man walked into the hospital. Clean shirt, safety helmet under one arm, kind smile. His name tag read, Jerry Okonkwo, chemical engineer, Petrolos International. "I'm looking for Dr. Elliana Anderson," he said. The nurse pointed to the corner. "You're in luck. She's on break." Jerry turned, saw her, sitting near a coffee stand, reading a patient file. There was something about her calm, her presence. He walked over, heart oddly nervous. "Excuse me, doctor," he said. "I'm Jerry." She looked up, smiled, and the world shifted. Coffee became conversations. Conversations became dinners. Dinners became prayers. And one evening, standing by the bridge, Jerry said softly, "You've healed so many. Isn't it time someone healed you?" Eliana's heart fluttered. "I don't know if I can give you a family." "I'm not marrying you to have children," he said. "I'm marrying you because you're my miracle." She cried. He held her. And 6 months later, they were married. The wedding was small, but the love was loud. Kingsley walked her down the aisle. Evelyn watched from the front row, eyes wet, hands shaking. "You're heaven's gift," Kingsley whispered. "She saved us all," Evelyn said. And as the vows were spoken, Elliana knew something holy had happened. 2 years later, a small cry came from the bathroom. "Jerry!" Elliana's voice trembled. He rushed in. She held up a stick. "A pregnancy test. Positive." They wept. They prayed. And when the scans came back, the doctors stared. "Twins," they said. "Both healthy." Elliana covered her mouth, tears flowing. "Miracle and Mirabelle," she whispered. On a bright Sunday morning, those twins entered the world. Kingsley held them with hands that once carried grief. Evelyn kissed their foreheads. The world rejoiced. News headlines called it impossible. Science called it unexplainable. But Elliana? She called it redemption. At their naming ceremony, the pastor held up the babies and said, "When God writes your story, even medicine must bow." The choir sang. The sun poured through the windows. Elliana held her daughters close. "I was the girl who begged for a chance," she whispered. "Now I'm the woman holding 2 miracles in her arms." And somewhere above the clouds, Juliana smiled. Her dream lived on, multiplied.